Alright, so we have our mining rig completely built and assembled, and so the next step is deciding, what operating system you're going to utilize to actually mine. One choice that I've had good success with in the past is called PIMP OS, and that stands for Portable Instant Mining Platform. It's a Linux build that's basically made specifically for mining. Very, very simple to set up and get up and going. It also has a remote mining platform that allows you to, dial into the web and see how your workers are doing. So it's come a long way in the last few years, but for me, the only downside is it does not yet support, as of September 2017, USB wireless adapters. And of my 5 systems, 3 of them are located in places where I can't run an Ethernet cable to. So I kind of have to have that wireless USB adapter. So for those systems, I'm forced to use Windows. So I'm going to go ahead and show in this video how to configure Windows to mine Ethereum. So now that we've gone ahead and decided that we're going to utilize Windows 10 for our mining platforms, get that installed. We're not going to go through it here. It's super simple to do. Get it all booted up, and from there, you're going to want to go to a web browser and decide on which mining pool you want to participate in. I personally have chosen to go with Nanopool. I'm using it for both Ethereum and Scicoin, and so I'll show you how to configure that for NVIDIA GPUs, which is what I'm using. So you're going to go to nanopool.org, and then from there go to the Quick Start button underneath Ethereum. And there's 2 options here you gotta do. So first off, you're going to download the Claymore Dual Miner application. This is the actual mining application you'll be utilizing. And so go ahead and download that. I believe it comes in a zip file, so go ahead and save that, and then you're going to extract that to whatever location you want it to run from. And once that's complete, you're going to generate your configuration file. And so what this does is this allows you to put in your operating system, your GPU type, what do you want to call this particular worker, and then your email address to where you want to receive notifications when the worker goes down. You can select the server and also the algorithm. So the first algorithm, obviously for us, is Ethereum. You're going to drop in your Ethereum mining address here, so your receive address to whatever wallet you're utilizing. And then if you want to mine Scicoin, you can add that here as well, along with an address. You hit generate, and it creates a zip file that has, I think, 3 config files in it. And you're going to drop those config files into the Claymore Dual Mining folder that you just extracted. It'll replace a few files, but those are now personalized, for your particular mining rig, with its own name, and then obviously pointing to the right addresses so you can receive payments from the mining clients. Alright, so with your mining client configured, the next step is to make sure all the drivers are working correctly within your existing system. Now, I will say that off the bat, Windows 10, just stock installation, won't work with the Claymore Dual Mining Client. So you're going to have to configure the GPUs. Now, you can try and go straight to NVIDIA's website and essentially download the current driver package and install it from there. For me, that didn't work, but you can try that. And once it's installed and rebooted, you would then run the Claymore application and see if it actually pulls decent hash rates. For me, it recognized the GPUs, but it was giving me very, very low hash rates. I was getting like 1.5 to 2 mega hash per second. So obviously not ideal for that scenario. So what I had to do, and what is probably more common for the Windows 10 Creators Edition, as far as if your most up-to-date version of Windows is on here, is letting Windows Update actually install the correct NVIDIA drivers for you. And so, but what you need to do first, if you haven't already, if you've already installed the NVIDIA drivers, is wipe those completely using a specific program, which I'll show here. It's called Display Driver Uninstaller, so DDU. This basically will completely remove any traces of the NVIDIA drivers and lets you kind of start fresh. So install this, run it, wipe the drivers, and then when you get back, what you're going to want to do is go to your start menu and type in check for updates, and then you would hit this check for updates button, and it would actually detect your GPUs and start downloading and installing the drivers you would need to utilize. For my situation, that was the best way to get the drivers installed. It does take a few reboots and whatnot, but if everything went correctly, what you'll be able to do at that point is then pull up the device manager or the hardware manager for your system, and it should list all 6 GPUs in a row. So at least you know the system is seeing what's installed there. So that's the first win. As long as you can see all 6 GPUs installed, you know that at least they're all detected. And the next step is to run the actual mining software again. And this is going to vary depending on the GPUs you're using. But for example, if you are running GTX 1060s, stock configuration is probably going to give you around 18 megahash per second. And so if you see your collection of GPUs giving you that rate, then you're in good shape. Now, I'm going to tweak mine and get them to go a bit higher, but at least you know that everything's working properly at that point. And we can move on to some of the other aspects, such as like remote monitoring and power management of the system. But before I go over to that, I wanted to also show, I'm also using Rainmeter over here on the side with multiple GPU meters, just to kind of show me exactly what's going on in my system at a glance. Again, system uptime, this one's been running for 9 days straight, just mining away, so doing great there. It shows the various temperatures, GPU thresholds, things of that nature. So now these are headless units. I'm not really watching them very often, but it is nice, if something's going on or need to check anything, to be able to log in and see the information at a glance. But with that done, let's go ahead and jump over to the remote management and monitoring of these systems. Now, for remote monitoring, there's multiple tools you can utilize for this. Within Windows, the first option is probably Remote Desktop. It's free, it's built into the system, very, very easy to use. But I'm personally utilizing TeamViewer because I think remote access from a mobile device is a little bit better, or a little bit easier, I guess, to configure and set up. So I'm using TeamViewer. It's free for non-commercial use and pretty easy to set up. Essentially, you can just hit these drop downs, go to your client list, and it'll show, how many systems you have set up and whatnot. So really easy to leverage for remote access. But in addition to that, one of the things that you want to try and do is make it so that certain applications launch as soon as your system boots up. That way, if there is a reboot or if the system does do a power cycle on its own, it's not just sitting there for a few days while nothing's happening if you haven't checked it. So that's one aspect of it, is getting those set up. And then second, your Nanopool account will actually notify you if one of your workers goes down. So just keep it on your email. I have other applications on my phone that also notify me if it goes down. So there's a few ways to do that. But what I've found is the easiest way to essentially launch these applications upon startup is a little program called Portable Start Menu. It's a program you just install, and basically whatever applications you want to launch on startup, you drop inside here. Windows does have a startup menu that you can do, but I found it doesn't work really well for these BAT files that the Claymore Dual Miner utilizes. So this worked with everything. So I found it's very lightweight and very easy to use. And go ahead and install the Portable Start menu, and then you're going to go to your run command here, and it's shell :startup, and that launches your startup menu here. And just go ahead and drop the icon from Portable Start menu directly into this, and that'll make that application run upon startup. Now again, once that's done, you go to the application itself, and I'm going to go over here to options and settings. And within the applications, this is where you can basically add these BAT files from the Claymore Dual Miner. So I have a few set up within here. The two I have running at startup are Msi Afterburner and then Ether mining. You could also have it so Ether plus Siacoin launch on the get-go. But basically, if I hit this and hit edit, it gives me the option to start automatically, so that as soon as Windows boots up, the Claymore Dual Miner starts mining Ether. So really easy to set up, but I definitely recommend having something going to make these programs launch at boot. Now, with that part completed, let's go ahead and talk about the power management side of it, because on occasion you will have to power cycle these systems, and I can show you how to do that remotely. Alright, so for part of the remote management, what I've done is I'm leveraging these little smart Wi-Fi plugs for each one of the systems. Basically, these are about $16 a piece, and it's just a little Wi-Fi enabled power switch where you can toggle on and off the power. And so I'll show how I have that set up in the system here and why I decided to leverage these guys. And that's the box that came in. I'll put the link down in my description as well. Alright, so here's just a quick rundown of how I would utilize these smart Wi-Fi adapters if one of my systems were to lock up on me. So basically I have the two different mining rigs here on top of this IKEA stand, and down here at the bottom you'll notice I have these smart Wi-Fi adapters plugged in right on top of the kilowatt wattage meters. So each of these has been plugged into again my Wi-Fi network, and there's an app on my phone. So basically, let's say in this scenario, let's say I get an email stating that I essentially have a system that's gone offline. Nanopool automatically sends an email if your system goes off, if one of your workers goes down. I have other mining applications that monitor my mining progress that also send me notifications. So there's more than one way to know if a system's gone down. But typically, if one goes down, it's one of two things: either your internet connection has had a problem, or your system is locked up. Now, it doesn't happen very often. As you'll notice here, this particular system has been up for 9 days, so 9 days running 24/7 mining is pretty good. But occasionally you do have some lockups. So what I would do is I would go over to the application for this particular Wi-Fi adapter. It's a Light Edge. And I would go find the system that's been affected. So in this case, we're going to say the ZMiner 01 is the one that's down. So I'm going to go ahead and back out so you can kind of see what happens here. I'll turn the light off so it's a bit more apparent. But I'll go ahead and toggle off this ZMiner 01. And you can see that top system totally shut down. Again, my bottom system is still running. It's just the top system's down right now. I'll give it about 10 seconds. Again, I'm using a solid state drive. There's no spinning components in here aside from the system fans. And I'll go ahead and turn it back on. And again, I've gone to the BIOS and I've set it to automatically boot back up as soon as AC power has been resupplied. So that setting's been configured in the BIOS, and as soon as the switch comes back on, everything boots back up. And it does it fairly quickly. So with that done, now the last part of this video is going to be tweaking your graphics cards to get the optimal hash rate. So let's go ahead and jump into that right now. So for this last part, as mentioned before, I'm just going to go over how to do some very, very minor tweaking to your graphics cards to optimize the hash rate you're getting. And this, as a side benefit, using this method, you're also going to reduce your power usage. So that's going to save some money on the energy bill as well. So what you're going to do is for these graphics cards, I'm going to utilize Msi Afterburner for NVIDIA. It seems to work pretty well. Now, on this particular system, I have 6 cards, 4 GTX 1060s, and then 2 GTX 1050s. So on this particular system, I can't modify them all at once. But if you have a system that has all 6 of the same cards, like some of my other ones, this is a very, very easy step. Basically, it'll link the profiles with all your GPUs automatically. So all you're going to do is, when you first boot up the Claymore Dual Miner, again, with a 1060, your stock hash rate's going to be like around 18 megahash per second. Well, you can very easily get to 22 with some very mild overclocks. And so you're not going to touch your GPU core at all, because for Ethereum specifically, you don't utilize the core for really anything. It's all memory based. So what you're going to do is essentially, so I'll go to one of my 1060s here and show I actually underclocked my GPU 90 megahertz in order to save some additional power, and I overclocked my memory 700 megahertz. So basically you just type in that value, and then you once it's completed, you hit enter, and then you hit this check mark here to apply the settings, and it's automatically going to show a pretty dramatic increase in hash rate. Once that's completed, you're going to want to also make sure that you have that saved to launch those settings upon startup, and basically lock the profile in using these buttons here. But again, for the GTX 1060, a little bit of undervolt, dropping your power limit by a little bit as well, and then overclocking your RAM by about 700 megahertz gives you a pretty standard hash rate that, if you look at this screenshot from one of my other systems that's all 1060s, across the board I'm getting about 22 megahash per second on each GPU, which is pretty good. And by doing the undervoltage mod on the core and the power limit here, I actually dropped my overall consumption by about 150 watts per system. So on a system running all 1060s, I'm only using about 650 watts at full load. So that's pretty impressive. But again, another reason to actually undervolt if you can, and it might actually save your cards, being that these things are running 24/7. The less heat it generates, the better for all the components. But that's a very, very simple way to overclock your GPUs to get optimal hash rates. And with that, that's pretty much the end of these 3 videos, kind of showing start to finish how to build and run your own mining rigs. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Be sure to hit up my project log, as it has a lot more detail and write-ups in regards to all these different aspects of the system. So with that, thanks for viewing, and let me know if you have any questions.